key.
Here's one of the most interesting things to me. We said we'd do this thought experiment. God could send his son to anywhere in the world. He doesn't send him to the cradle of Chinese civilization or the cradle of Indian civilization or the cradle of European civilization. He sends him, according to the New Testament and the belief there, he sends him to a little tiny village in the Galilee, which is looked down upon. And one of the reasons it's looked down upon is the people there are Jewish settlers. Mm-hmm. They've only been there for a few generations. They don't have long roots in that land. Mm-hmm. The people of Israel do, but the Jews who came from Judea don't. And on top of that, a lot of the people in Galilee are converted Jews. Mm-hmm. And there were definitely Jews who were obsessed with genealogies. Paul talks about that. And and they would say, well, okay, I'm a true Jew. Your great-great-grandfather was forcibly converted to Judaism. Are you even really a faithful Jew, or did you do it out of convenience? And the population who lived there were called the Etrurians. Mm-hmm. Now, some people will describe them as Arabs. One of the earliest reference to them is from the same Greek historian we heard about before, Strabo, in Book 16, Chapter 2. He says the Etrurians and the Arabians, right? The Arabs are a separate group, all of whom are freebooters. I had to look up the word freebooter. Freebooter is a pirate on the land. It comes from the Dutch. All of whom are freebooters, occupy the whole of the mountainous tracts. Now, he's talking actually after the conquest and the conversion of the Etrurians. So he's talking about the Etrurians who live in Lebanon. He said the husbandmen, meaning the shepherds, live in the plains, and when harassed by the freebooters, they require protection of various kinds. And the robbers have strongholds from which they issue forth. So he describes the Etrurians who are not conquered, the ones that Judah Aristobulus couldn't conquer because maybe they were held up in the mountains. They come down and they harass the people who live in the plains who are raising sheep. And this is their way of life for both the Etrurians and the Arabs. Well, the Etrurians in Galilee, they became Jews. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a question about, are these Etrurians Semites or not Semites? And I'm now convinced a little bit more than I was in the past that maybe they're descendants of Yishmael. We're told in Genesis 25:15 and 1 Chronicles 1:31, had a son named Yetur. Mm-hmm. And Etrurians could be Yeturim. We're told in 1 Chronicles 5:18 through 22, we don't have time to get to it, how there was a war in Transjordan with a bunch of different nomadic tribes, and one of those are the Yetur. That is the Iturians. So the Iturians who came into Galilee and Lebanon were ones who earlier had been in Transjordan, and maybe they were all over the place. They were nomadic. So what we have is, we have something really interesting, that Yeshua's not place of birth, because according to the New Testament, that's Bethlehem, but the place where Yeshua grows up, to be more accurate, is Nazareth. And why Nazareth? It could have been anywhere. Why Galilee? And here's something we've talked about in the past. I'm going to let you run with this. Galilee is a place where there are three types of people. There are Jews who are descended from Jacob and Judah. There are Jews who have joined themselves to the people of Israel and the God of Israel. And they didn't have to, I say forcibly converted, but they could have left. Mm-hmm. 90% of the Etrurian homeland was in what's today Lebanon, and never came under the rule of the Maccabees or the Hasmoneans, never came under Jewish rule. They could have left. Mm-hmm. And then there were people who were Gentiles, just straight out Gentiles who spoke Greek, and some spoke Aramaic. So you had three types of people in Galilee. So I wonder if this was not one of the reasons that this was chosen, because we have this Galilee of the nations, Galilee of the Gentiles, and that's the place where he's chosen to grow up. What do you think about that, Keith?
The thing, Nehemia, I don't only think about that, but I also, and I know there's going to be so much more that we'll always come back to, but I even think about the fact that we don't hear about him until this time. Luke says it around age 30. What was he doing there? Who was he interacting with? How was he being prepared to do the very thing he's about to go and do? And I have to wonder if it wasn't because of all of that diversity, the diversity of people, the diversity of thought, socioeconomic diversity. We didn't even go into all of that. But I mean, you're talking about a place that's, can I use the word, I don't know if this is a good word, a melting pot of people from different places, different languages, different thoughts. And from there is where he was at. And again, we're going to find out later what he was doing before he gets to John. But I
Well,
think it's yeah.
so I'm gonna summon the Jewish principle I've talked about before, which is Maaseh Avot Siman Lebanim.
Mm,
That is, the actions of the fathers are signs to the sons.
mm,
And I have to wonder here if the reason that this was chosen as the place was, in a sense, foretelling what would happen
mm,
later for those who followed Yeshua.
yeah.
Right? And if you look early in his ministry, and we'll get to this, I'm jumping ahead, I know, but early in his ministry, he says, I'm not here for the Canaanite woman. I'm only here for I'm not going to throw this to the dogs. This message, I'm not going to give the food for the children to the dogs. This is only for Israel.
Mhm,
And then there's a certain point in his ministry where there's a shift.
mhm.
And what a great place for there to be a shift in Galilee of the nations.